Hello, everyone. I'm Robyn Grable, the founder of Talents Ascend and the Ascend Collective, and your host for Ascending Beyond Barriers. Welcome. Ascending Beyond Barriers is an inspiring podcast dedicated to showcasing the remarkable journeys of small business founders who have faced and overcome significant challenges on their path to success. Each episode delves into the personal stories of entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds, highlighting their unique experiences, struggles, and triumphs. Today, we're honored to be joined by Lechon Kirb, a visionary leader, strategic advisor, and marketing strategist, speaker, and Marine. Lashon is on a mission to empower creators to pursue their dreams through intentional risk-taking and purpose-driven action. As the founder of Intry, an AI-powered speaker matchmaking platform, he's revolutionizing the way leaders connect with stages, podcasts, corporate opportunities that align with their unique message and mission. He's also the author of the upcoming book, A Culture of Equity, a powerful roadmap for owning your purpose, amplifying your presence, and thriving despite challenges. Get ready to be inspired as we dive into Lashon's journey, insights, and game-changing strategies for scaling impact and creating lasting change. This is like perfect, Lashon, because obviously our podcast is called Ascending Beyond Barriers. So what you're doing is just fits in so perfectly. But I want to first talk about, you being a Marine. Thank you for your service there. My nephew is an active duty Marine right now. So
Thank you.
tell us a bit about your service in the Marines and how that kind of led you to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, great question, actually. Honestly, my journey really started when I was 6. I I grew up in Pittsburgh, and this one day I was playing hide and go seek with my sister and my cousin, and they got the idea they were going to go hide in the attic, and I got the bright idea I was going to go hide in the basement. My mom had an old refrigerator down there, and nobody would really go because it was like dark and kind of mildewy, right? And I went down there and I found the old refrigerator. I took the racks out and I climbed in. And while I was trying to get situated, I knocked the refrigerator over on the door. And so now I'm in there and I'm clawing and I'm screaming and I'm yelling, I'm gasping for air. And luckily, I made enough noise that my mom overheard. She came down and kicked over the refrigerator, got me out of that thing. But like that was the moment, I think for me, that I discovered that I needed freedom, like I need oxygen. These things are the same to me, and
Sure.
that really translated into my thoughts about what I do with business, because everything for me is focused around like what's going to give me the most amount of flexibility and freedom and scalability, right? And so that my ideas about freedom are what led me into the military, and so that
Sure.
it's a direct connection, I guess you could say, for sure.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And so you served in the Marines, and now you're an entrepreneur helping other people, like, I guess, realize their dreams and be focused on thriving. So tell us about that. How did you get started in your business?
Well, I think that we all have dreams, right? We don't all communicate them very well or take a lot of concentrated action on them. I was fortunate, really. When I was in the Marine Corps, I had a buddy that sold me like an old film camera, and so I started taking it like on our training missions around the world with me, and I developed this like ability to see stories unfolding right in front of us and these new filters for how to view life. And it was really amazing. And it just kind of left a seed with me. And so when I left the military, I started doing more of photography, got into branding, ended up going to school for multimedia, which is like, kind of a combination of audio, engineering, and web development and graphic design and things like that. But basically, I learned how to become really powerful in branding. And when I started getting really, really good at branding, it got picked up by some large organization. So my stuff started being seen on like Universal and Red Bull and BET and
Nice.
Centric and VH1 and billboards and editorials, right? And it was like this really, really great thing for me in terms of like, hey, I can see the things that I'm creating going into the world, but I didn't feel as though it was making me like enough money based on given what I was creating, right? And so I
Okay.
knew these organizations were able to leverage it. I just didn't know how to do that, and I knew I needed figure that piece out. Like, how do I make it make more sense for me? Um, because I know it's of value, because otherwise they wouldn't be participating with it, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's a good point for everybody because it's even, if you believe in what you're doing and people are telling you how great it is, but yet it's not like really taking off. Why not? You got to figure that out. It's a good question for us. So keep talking. I want to learn.
What was taken off? That's the weird part. Like, it was super taken off. I mean, I had millions and millions and millions of impressions. It's just that, like, it wasn't taking off on my bank account. And so,
Right.
like, I understood that I was being leveraged. I just didn't know how to create leverage for myself, which was
Okay.
like, in terms of money, and in terms of equity, in terms of like
Yeah.
partnerships, right? Like, what's going to make the real difference for myself and my family? I didn't really know how to do that because I'd spent all my years becoming proficient in being a creative. And so I needed to really
Right.
solve that piece.
Or in service to people
In
as
service to
most
people.
veterans are, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So one of the things you talk about is helping people with taking intentional risk. Risk is a scary word for a lot of people. Entrepreneurs are full of taking risks, which is a lot of reasons why we have to talk about ascending beyond barriers, because there are barriers that we face as entrepreneurs. But how do you help small businesses or entrepreneurs take intentional risk?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really think it comes down to having the ability to assess the value of what you do properly, right? Because those risks become less risky if you understand why
Yeah.
it's super valuable in the first place. Give you an example, right? Like, most entrepreneurs start out, they want to do a service or a product or something like that, right? And they sell their service or their product. They're connected to their price and their costs. They're not necessarily connected to the transformation that having their service or product creates for the end user, right? But if you are able to look at that through a different lens, you would say, like, hey, maybe this organization is hiring me as a service provider, but then what would it cost them to produce that, or what does it remove in terms of costs for them, right? And so that helps you kind of make it, guide that in a little bit more. So the risk become reduced risks, when you're able to look through the right lenses. And so that's part of how I help people think about that. It's like, well, what's the value of the problem that you're solving versus,
Yeah.
like, what are you selling and what's the price?
And it's hard because I'm really in this situation because I am so passionate about what we do at Talents Ascend, and I know it works, and I know it helps small businesses and our veterans and military spouses, but it's how do I communicate that without sounding like it's just about the money? Like I don't, it's like how do you get that message out there and help them see? And it's true, you have to see it from someone else's eyes. I just got a message this morning from a client that I worked with 10 years ago who just really made my century, really, but told me how great I did back then. But you don't really understand the impact you have sometimes when you're so mired in it. So good for you for helping people try to do that. But all right, tell us about Intry. I love the whole matchmaking piece because that's certainly what we do at Talents Ascend is match small businesses with talent. But how do you do that in your company Intry or your project you talked about earlier?
Well, I want to answer that for you, but I first want to address something that you mentioned in the last statement, right? And that was more of like something to the tune of, like, you don't want people to think that you're only doing it for the money, right?
Yes,
To be fair, you're not doing it for the money, and nobody is
I'm
doing
not.
it for the money. They're not. They're doing it for what that money makes available in their life. They're doing it for their legacy. They're doing it for their freedom. They're doing it
Yep.
for the idea that if they run into a challenge, they can afford healthcare. They can put their kids in the right scenario so they can get, like, premium education, and they can create a better
Yeah.
life for themselves. They're doing it so that their health is good, and it's not so money provides that as a vehicle, and that's what people are battling against. So, when I get into conversations where people are being very transactional about the way that they approach it, maybe it's not the best for relationship development, but I get, like, hey, they're really fighting for something, and whatever you see in front of you, or whatever person's like in front of you, there's a whole journey that they're battling, and a whole thing they've been through that you're not aware of. And so
Yeah.
I just take that approach, with some empathy and some understanding and some patience. Um, but this really directly connects to what we're doing with Intry, right? Intry is this AI booking solution that I came up with, right? It's the idea is for you to be able to elevate your voice and your platform. Now, part of why
Nice.
that's really difficult is like there are these things that are in the middle. Like you got to find an agency and you've got to hire a booking agent. And then when they do that, let's say that you're a speaker, you want to get on a big platform. And let's say the big platform is going to pay you $30,000. It's a great keynote, right? Well, a booking agency is going to take 30 or 40% of that. It's a huge chunk. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of uncomfortable. And to be fair, it's pretty archaic. And so my idea was to have this SaaS solution that allows AI to go and facilitate those opportunities. To
Yeah.
filter down like what are the opportunities, how do you get an opportunity to speak for Google or to Microsoft or to get your your grand idea on the appropriate platform, and then when you do that, how do you reduce the cost and the friction and the complexity, right? And so it's really designed for someone to elevate their voice and then to be able to do something on the back end.
I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, fantastic. And I think AI is going to change a lot of that in the world as we go forward. We certainly use AI at Talents Ascend very simply to translate skills and match those skills, but it takes out the noise, just like you said. It takes out all of the stuff that doesn't need to be there and just makes it so simple to make those connections. So good for you. That's so super exciting. Well, thanks you and congratulations on that. So you're also writing a book. Is that something you tell entrepreneurs that writing a book is a great way to get their brand out there or get their message out there?
It's not something I tell entrepreneurs to
No?
do at all.
Okay.
Only because I do think it's a good I think it's a good rail, right? I think just having some omnipresence with the way that you get your message out there is probably a good thing. For example, books, in my opinion, they don't make a ton of money, but however,
Right.
they could get you more awareness. They could create some prestige for how people perceive your brand. They could make you
Right.
some money, but it's probably good in terms of positioning and some like lower level lead acquisition, like getting people to purchase with you to
Okay.
get on your email list is like a good thing. Because the counter side to that is like you would have to pay like if you were running paid ads like Google ads or YouTube ads or something like Facebook ads, you would be paying to get these people on your email list and people are paying
Right.
you to get on your email list. So I think from that perspective, it's probably a really good thing. So that's more
Yeah.
of like how I look at that.
Awesome. No, that's really good insight. So what's the book about? Tell us about the book.
Yeah, a culture of equity is really around the mindset of thinking of if you're going to get involved with entrepreneurship and you're going to get involved with business, how do you get a piece of the pie, right? How do you not become the cog in the wheel? How do you become, an integral part of the system that you're putting out there, whether that's for your service or for your product? How do you position yourself the right way in business deals? But it starts with how you think about it and the value
Mm.
of what you do. So this book is really training you on how to think about that. How are some of the other people in the world that are getting, extraordinary results thinking about that so that you can kind of map that onto your own efforts. So yeah, it's about really learning how to use your voice to empower yourself.
Nice. I love that. Well, I'll look forward to reading it. When does it come out?
It's supposed to release in Q3 of this year. So we're super
Nice.
excited about that. And
Yeah.
it's really
Well,
in the assembly
congratulations.
process now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'll look forward to getting that because I need to do more of that. I'm very service oriented, obviously as a veteran, and just what we're doing as a company. But I need to be able to elevate my voice more. So I'm looking forward to learning from your wisdom. So you work with a lot of entrepreneurs. You work with a lot of small business owners trying to elevate their brand. What would you say is one of the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs have in doing that?
One of the biggest challenges is that we're all up against time, right? Like
Mm.
everything that you're doing is in exchange for everything else that you could be doing. And if
Hmm.
you don't have really good systems for making that more scalable and stop trading things, um, you really can't put yourself in the positions of leverage. So for me, I love to think about what is going to reduce the time that it takes me to do something or what's going to make it more scalable. So what's going to be a multiplier because everything that you do isn't going to like launch you into the business. Like if I need to go do the dishes, yes, the dishes need to be done, but it's not going to make my next $1 million. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I really
Sure.
want to filter down to like, okay, what actions that I'm taking are going to have the right amount of output, and if that thing is really kind of taking away from my scalability, then I want to offset that, right? Or I want to put that to some other system or some other person or some other thing.
Yeah.
So I really, that's how I think about it, right? Like what's going to have
Yeah.
like the greatest amount of output, what's going to help me reduce the time that it takes me to create some new thing, and how do I make it like more scalable so that I can figure out how to make more and more money in my sleep. And that's really the conversation that I have with other people is like, how do you make yourself more scalable? What systems do
Right.
you have in place? How do we automate certain things? How do we make
Yeah.
things more fruitful for you in terms of monetization? And how do you buy back your time?
That's it. You only get 24 hours in a day, right? So I think that's critical too for small business owners who are trying to build their business. It's easy to say yes to everything because you're just trying to see what sticks. So how do you coach and tell, people that you work with have learned how to say no?
Well, that's a great question. I believe that most people are seeking a no. They're seeking a no. And so
Okay.
I will give them opportunities to have that no if I position what I'm saying in the right way. Let me give you an example. If I were to say to you, hey, do you want to get on a call next week? You would have to think about all the things that you have to do and if the calendar works and if you really want to do that, or is it a sales call or is it just to catch up? Like you'd have to go through all these mental gymnastics. But if I were to say to you, hey, would you be opposed to getting on a call today? Then I'm still saying, hey, I'd like to get on a call with you, but I'm positioning it so that you can give me a no. And so you might say in response, no, I'm not opposed to getting on a call today. Or, yeah, it doesn't work for today, but tomorrow afternoon, I'm open, right? And so I'm still generating the desired result. However, I'm positioning it so that you can give me a no. Does that make
Mm,
sense? So
sure. Yeah.
the stress that you feel from having to say yes, you're giving out this yes, you don't have the
Right.
experience of losing anything because you gave out a no.
Yeah. And you don't have to feel bad about saying
You don't.
no. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's a big difference. I mean,
It's not connected to feeling bad because you didn't give
yeah,
out a yes. Yeses feel like
yeah,
you lost something in the process.
exactly. So, what do you see as what's a challenge you've overcome in building your brand, building your businesses, and how did you overcome those?
Challenges. I think the early big challenge was kind of like I'm preaching is building the right systems, but like not just systems, but like how do I get awareness and turn this into stuff? Like how do I do it?
Yeah,
Like what's the technical, what's the mindset? How do I spend enough money to like get the right help, and did I waste that money? I ended up like investing in this business mastermind probably 2016 or so, something like that. And it was really revolutionary because I didn't have the money. I took everything of value that I had to buy a ticket to this thing, and it was very high risk. It was in Colorado. I didn't even have enough money to get back
wow,
because when I left software, I just kind of lost everything, and then I had it in my mind that if I was in the right conversations with the right people, that I could take that and immediately take action and get results. Like I would take the action. I would do everything in power to do that. And so I ended up going to this business mastermind, and within probably an hour of being there, and it was like 3 days, I discovered that A, how I was pricing my stuff completely off compared to my competitors. Completely. If I had an offer for $2,500, their offers were 10 times more than that.
wow,
Like, and so I had to really go through some transformation because my first questions were like, who was going to buy that? And the answer is lots of people are going to buy that. They're just not the same people. Right. So
right,
the people that are going to buy that have the position to do that. They have the economic power to do that. They feel comfortable spending that amount of money. And there's not less of them necessarily if I'm targeting the right people. So I think
yes,
that is like a really good lesson that, like, if you're willing to put yourself um, in the right environment
hmm
and learn from what other people are doing, then you can get some pretty amazing results. And it was
yeah,
probably I think before I left there, I ended up pricing one of our things very, very high. I sold the first one like leaving there, and that was the money I used to even get home. But it also like I didn't come back as the same person because the way I thought about that was completely different. So
Yeah.
I would just say
That's
like be
awesome.
open to stepping outside of the way that you perceive things, and be willing to take some risks, because it did take some risk. It was how am I getting back? Or
Right.
if I put this astronomical price on something, is anyone going to buy this? Am I just going to starve? I didn't starve.
Right. I think there's a couple points in there. I just read and I watched the movie before about Walt Disney. Have you ever seen it and read, heard the story of their studio went bankrupt, but he took his last $40 and they moved to Los Angeles to, find the dream, and it worked, but they took a lot of risks, and
Absolutely.
it worked, but it didn't work before, so he had to keep doing the things that he believed in and taking those risks. But I also think what you said is really about how you value your time and being able to take those risks, but also see the value in what you're doing. And your audience isn't everybody. That's, I think, a mistake that a lot of small business owners, well, my product is good for everybody or my service is good for everybody. Well, no, it isn't. And until you figure out your true audience, just like you said, not everybody's going to buy at that higher price, but there are going to be people that will, and you have to find that tribe, right? You have to find that group that will do it, and then you can become successful. So good for you. Well, it's scary for people to do that, though, that think about, oh gosh, I can get there, but how am I going to get home? And it's funny because I think when I got out of the Navy, I was 12 different, jobs or 10 different jobs in 12 years, 4 different states. I just say, okay, I'm done with this. I'm going to move to the next state. I'm going to pick up, and those risks were like, I didn't even think about it. But now that I'm running a business and the impact that I have, it's like, wow, the risks are a lot scarier now. Maybe it's just because I'm older. I don't know. Anyway, so tell us what your, greatest advice would be for entrepreneurs out there. We've talked about a lot of great things that they can learn from, but what's your one biggest piece of advice as we start to close out here that you would tell entrepreneurs about breaking barriers?
If I were to give you one piece of advice right now, it's that you need to go deeper with context, right? Like
Mm,
it really, really matters who you are and how you think about things. And especially with like kind of this surgence of AI
yeah,
and more noise kind of being injected into everything online, social media, and all those kinds of things. It matters that you're able to cut through the noise. And so I find that like having more and more context for who you are, what you do, why it matters, what your
yeah,
journey is like, why you care about something, just allows you to kind of be more, just more omnipresent, more able to really, really elevate your personal brand, and find your tribe, the people that
yeah,
think like you, the people that talk like you, the people that really resonate with your message. That's going to be really paramount right now, and it
yeah,
is going to take some risks, and it is probably going to take some investment, some money, and some time, and all those kinds of things. But I think right now for me, what's very, very loud is the ability to cut through the noise and to find the people that really resonate with your message. Because then if you have a solution, or you've got a product or a service or a something, potential partnership, you'll be able to kind of identify who those people are for you. Like, and I think that's kind of the name of the game right now, because like I said, with AI, people are going to be able to do all kinds of things where they're going to have 1,000% multipliers. Like if you're
yeah,
not using some of these tools, you're going to get lapped over
yeah,
the next month or so. Like,
yeah.
and
No,
what does
absolutely.
that
Yeah,
look like over
agreed.
the next year? Like we've seen what that looked like with the internet. The only difference is it
Right,
was way slower. When the internet came online and people started using it, it was probably 10 years before anyone was like, wait, you can do business on this thing, right? Like
right.
it was, we were just like, oh, you can search words and, but things are changing. Things are
Yes.
really, really changing, and we're in the middle of like these emerging technologies. So I would just say get really, really clear on your messaging and what you want to put out to the world, and attract your tribe. And when you're able to attract your tribe, that's going to bring you awareness, that's going to bring you relationships, it's going to bring you connections, and it's going to bring you opportunities to make the kind of life that you desire to live.
Yeah. Great advice. It's so powerful because if you don't, again, trying to boil the ocean, people try to do too much, and there's so much out there now, and there's so much noise out there. AI, I think, will calm some of that down as much as it will raise some of it, because you can do so many things much faster. You know, you can write content pieces faster, you can do things faster to get your brand out there, but you have to be mindful. You have to know your who, you have to know your why, and stick to that. And if you do, like you said, you'll just be successful. Well, Lashon, thank you so much for being on. We appreciate just incredible work that you're doing. And I get so inspired by talking with you and our last conversation, which was a couple of months ago now, but just so inspired by what you're doing and look forward to the book and keeping in touch. So thank you again for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. You're awesome.
Thank you.